And now we are concluding our 6th annual Out Summit, which I have to say is really bittersweet. And it's my honor to draw us to a close. To start, I want to thank you for your participation. Thank you to those of you who listened. Thank you to those of you who presented. Thank you to the sponsors and donors who literally made this conference happen. Thank you to the many people who chatted non-stop. I felt like I was with my Jewish and Italian families. But in all seriousness, your interventions gave this conference heart, depth, and life. And we really couldn't have done it without you. So I want to ask, did you like Out Summit? In fact, did you love Out Summit? Well, if you speak a language other than English, I want to invite you to write in your language in the chat. Tell us the word for love. I want to again introduce Outright, the force of nature that organized this conference. And I'd like to ask you to please also use the chat to give some love to the absolutely phenomenal Outright staff, board, and interns for all of their hard work. Well done, everyone. Outright has been fighting for LGBTIQ equality for 30 years. We're a global LGBTIQ feminist and human rights organization with staff in 9 countries. We focus on research, advocacy, and resourcing our movement. We are the only LGBTIQ organization in the world to focus on amplifying LGBTI voices, your voices, at UN headquarters. We also provide training, research, technical assistance, and funding to LGBTIQ activists and organizations around the world, and that is because we believe in uplifting and investing in local solutions. We love Out Summit, but we also know this work happens 365 days a year. Whether you're an activist, academic, journalist, donor, youth, business person, faith leader, or government official, please reach out. We can and will keep changing the status quo for LGBTIQ rights, but we can't do it alone. Regardless of whether this was your 6th Out Summit or your 1st, stay with us. Reach out to an activist you met here, partner with Outright's research program or UN advocacy initiatives. Attend our Out Talks weekly seminar series. Watch Outright TV to follow the activists you met here, or volunteer yourself to be interviewed. Or join one of our training programs like Advocacy Week or our Fellows programs. Basically what I'm saying is, let Outright know you want to stay involved. We want to hear from you because we need you. Outright took a big risk going online with Out Summit this year, and I'm happy to say, relieved to say, exhausted to say, it's been a huge success. 1,650 people from more than 70 countries took part. We met people from Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Libya, Liberia, Colombia, Mexico, Haiti, Singapore, Myanmar, and more. It wasn't just well-known activists, donors, and professionals. We had many grassroots activists here and many new friends I met for the first time. The conference was beautiful in all its diversity. But to speak honestly, in this time when so many of us have lost loved ones due to COVID, when we're struggling with isolation, when so many of us are dealing with economic destabilization, when we've seen the ravages of anti-Black violence and spikes in domestic violence, we needed this time together. We needed this time together in the global LGBTIQ movement. We sometimes say the global LGBTIQ movement, like it's a given, something that just happens. But that's not true. Our global LGBTIQ movement is a precious thing. It takes nurturing to create, it catalyzes progress, and it saves lives. We have a global LGBTIQ movement because we build relationships in spaces like Out Summit, and because we learn to fight not just for ourselves, but for each other. This conference revealed the duality of LGBTIQ lives around the world today. On the one hand, throughout Out Summit, I heard about brilliant activism that moves mountains. For example, did you hear that Bhutan decriminalized homosexuality yesterday on Human Rights Day? Did you hear that Argentina's lower house just approved a landmark abortion bill? Incredible. On the other hand, I also heard grave stories of exclusion, deprivation, and violence. When you have a global overview, you quickly realize that LGBTIQ rights are enormously complex. Progress and tragedy are always happening simultaneously. And sometimes progress in one place creates backlash in another. We created space for people to tell their truth, and you all did, even when it was hard. Let me read to you some powerful comments from the OutSummit chats. Our heart goes out to the brave LGBT community in Indonesia. We in Iraq face the same situation. And then from a participant in an undisclosed location. They tell you that you're like a woman. They ask, why would you do that? You should be very strong and act like a man. Another comment. Why isn't there media coverage of LGBT plus violations in the Middle East? I'm from Saudi Arabia, and I feel no one cares about the death of queer people here. A person in Kenya also wrote, I'm still trying to understand my mother's feelings towards me. Sad to imagine that the people who should be loving you so close are the ones that bring you down. I ask you to hear those statements. Hear the sorrow and injustice of them. These comments are why we do this work, why we have to double down for LGBTIQ rights. We must fight against invisibility, exclusion, poverty, anti-trans ideologies, anti-woman ideologies, anti-Blackness, discrimination in all its forms, and always we must fight anti-LGBTIQ violence. The status quo is unacceptable. We must fight for LGBTIQ rights, and we fight for human rights for everyone, everywhere. This week at OutSummit, we also felt hope. We were reminded that the global LGBTIQ movement is full of expertise, resilience, and creativity. And we know exactly how to make this world a better place, whether they give us the resources, please, we hope they will, or not. We heard about pioneering data collection from Myanmar and Nigeria, journalists who report on LGBTIQ news everywhere, UN strategies like treaty bodies and the LGBTI core group that produce results, global North activists who demand that their own governments fund LGBTIQ rights in the global South, donors who are holding their sector accountable for underfunding LGBTIQ rights and humanitarian needs, a safety and security firewall of activists and allies in Indonesia, members of the private sector who are trying to use their privilege to fuel the front lines, and filmmakers and poets and musicians and actors who are using art and entertainment to tell LGBTIQ stories. As I wrap up, I invite you to use the chat to tell us, what did OutSummit mean to you? Type a word or a phrase. We are going to miss you. This is not goodbye. This is only see you later, and we loved being together. After I finish these remarks, you're in for a treat. We are closing our first ever virtual OutSummit with two special performances. The first is a video by Khansa. Khansa is a Lebanese singer, songwriter, and dancer who breaks stereotypes of so-called traditional Middle Eastern values regarding masculinity through his dancing and singing. His cultural references range from religion to art, telling an oft-overlooked story about the Middle East. David Corbell is a singer and songwriter from San Francisco, bringing California pop soul to the world. David has collaborated with award-winning UK songwriter, producer, Elliot Kennedy at his Steelworks Studios. As we conclude, I feel inspired. I'm convinced that the moral of the story is that when you bring LGBTIQ people and allies together, we exchange ideas, we affirm each other, and we build a fierce and beautiful global movement. I'll close with a quote from Bev Ditzi, the South African shiro who spoke on our opening plenary about fighting racism as a global LGBTIQ community. I asked how she felt about the conference, and she said, "Damn, sometimes I walk away thinking we can actually change the world." Stay tuned for the final performances by Khansa and David Corbell. Thank you for being with us these past 3 days. Keep in touch tomorrow, next month, and next year. Be well, and thank you.
People saying all the same things, they really need to let go. World is turning, got to move on. Time to step out of slow-mo. Got to own what you've been given. Making that your legacy. It's not about your way we're living. It's a philosophy. We are love. We are calling on the world to treat it with your whole heart. We are light. Like a body supernova, lighting up the whole heart. We are one. We are equal in the power, never tearing us apart. We are one. We are light. We are love. What's the point in trying to fit in when you're made to stand out? So much more in life to live in. Breathing in and breathing out. Find the thing that makes you great and go and make this world your own. There's a rainbow life that's waiting. Say just one more. We are love. We are calling on the world to treat it with your whole heart. We are light, like a bright supernova, lighting up the whole heart. We are one. We are equal in the power, never tearing us apart. We are one. We are light. We are love. We are one.